Welcome ASUN fans to another season in review. I'm Jordan Griffith, and much like yesterday, we went through the men's side, and now it's time to go through the women's and sift through every little detail until we get to the conference champion. Let's start with the Bellarmine Knights.
Although the season didn't go quite as planned for the Knights, they looked to build off of what was a promising second half of the season. The Knights were able to get their most impressive win of the season against the Lipscomb Bisons. Not only did they win that game, but they dominated with a 68-48 victory. They also stayed close in many of the losses down the stretch, including one to the Western leader in Jacksonville State. Guard Jayla Johnson was one of the driving forces for the Knights last year, as she ended the year 5th in the ASUN in scoring with 12.8 points per game. As the Bellarmine Knights transitioned to D1, they looked to build another positive year in the ASUN. Next up, the North Florida Ospreys. UNF brought back a star-studded squad with the likes of Jada Bond, Emma Browerman, and of course, Jazz Bond, who had another outstanding season. She bolstered down the UNF team on both sides with 15.1 points per game and 2.4 blocks to help get the Ospreys into first in the ASUN in block shots per game. Jazz Bond was named ASUN All-Conference First Team and a share of Defensive Player of the Year. UNF was one of the most proficient offensive teams in the league, boasting a 42.9 field goal percentage and 6.8 made threes per game, those good for 3rd and 4th respectively. The biggest reason for that high field goal percentage was due to the high percentage takes of Emma Browerman. She broke the D1 school record with a 60.2% field goal percentage. She demolished the previous record holder, being Emma Browerman, with a 56% field goal percentage just the prior year. Per usual, the Ospreys made a conference championship run, making it to the semifinals after an impressive 60-42 win over the Bisons. Moving along to the newcomers for this year. First, the Central Arkansas Sugar Bears. The mantra was simple for this team: don't let the other team score. Although they didn't find the offensive groove quite this year, they knew how to keep the lid on the basket on the other end. UCA allowed just 62 points scored per game and ranked as one of the best defensive teams in the country at times during the season. The leader of this team was Lucy Ebay in every aspect of the game. Ebay was named second team All-ASUN as she averaged a double-double with 12.5 points per game as well as 10.3 rebounds. Outside of the star forward, there was also some recognition for the freshman Randria Wright as she landed ASUN All-Freshman team spot after averaging almost 10 points a game this season. Much like UCA, the Eastern Kentucky Colonels were also in their first year in the ASUN, but were able to prize some success out of the 21-22 season. After finishing 15-16 on the year, they received the 3 seed in the West Division and got a triumphant win over Kennesaw State in the first round of the tournament. With 7 minutes left in that game, the Colonels trailed by 2, but then went on a scorching hot 23-6 run to win their first home postseason game since 2003. One of the leaders of that specific run, as well as a lot of others this year, was guard Jayla Johnson. Johnson averaged 12.7 points per game to lead the team by a wide margin while hitting 92 shots from deep this year. With her leading the way, the offense came in droves for EKU as they scored 67 points per game, good for 3rd in the ASUN. Tallying onto the offense was the free throws. EKU not only got to the line better than any other team with almost 100 more attempts than the next closest team, but they also hit them. EKU finished the season at a 74% clip at the line, making the art of the foul a big reason for their success this year. Now it's time to talk about the North Alabama Lions. UNA finished just in front of the aforementioned EKU team in the West, nabbing the number 2 seed. The season was highlighted by 2 stars in Julian Strachan and Skylar Gill. Strachan, a grad transfer, did not hesitate to start putting up points, ending the year with 11.8 per game to lead the Lions. The key to her success was to stretch the floor. Strachan shot 43.8% from beyond this year, finishing second in the league behind Kendall Spray, an all-time shooter in college basketball. There were times on the season where she took games over, much like her 11 threes versus Jacksonville, setting the UNA program record. Although Strachan accomplished the tall feat, right next to her was freshman Skylar Gill. Gill plastered a mind-boggling year in every category for a freshman, with 9.7 points per game, 9 rebounds, and 3.3 blocks. Maybe the most impressive fact about that stat line is that she's only 5'11". Her standout performances led to the share of Defensive Player of the Year with Jazz Bond, along with a sole win of ASUN Freshman of the Year. A lot to look forward to for Lions fans going into the offseason. As we continue through the West, it's time to look at the Lipscomb Bisons. Much like their Western foe UNA, Lipscomb also likes to shoot the ball from deep. The Bisons put up 682 threes this year, making 7.2 per game. Although they struggled in conference at times this year, they played the top dog of the West close all year with margins of defeat of 10 and 9 against Jacksonville State. The scoring for the Bisons was evenly distributed this year, with Jalen Holcomb being the lone player to average double figures. Holcomb did this while only starting 14 of the 22 games that she played in. 7 other Bisons scored 7 points or more per game this season, with one of them being the future star of the conference, Bella Vinson. Vinson scored 7 points a game with 16 blocks this year for the 6'2 freshman. And not to mention Casey Collier, who led the team in assists and steals with 92 assists this season and 33 ribs. Now down to the Atlanta area to look over the Kennesaw State Owls. It was the beginning of the Blue era for KSU, with head coach Octavia Blue at the helm for her first season. There is no doubt that the Owls protected the nest this year in the Convocation Center, taking 7 wins at home. KSU was helped out this year with the return of forward Alexis Poole as a returner off a COVID opt-out the previous season. Poole bursted back onto the scene as though she never left, putting up 11 points per game and 5.5 boards. Poole then went on to break the career all-time record in the Kennesaw State D1 program history for points. As in years past, the eyes were on Amani Johnson after another year of elite-level production. The senior averaged 13 points per game with 4.5 assists, while being one of the top-tier workhorses across the country. Johnson played over 38 minutes per game, skyrocketing her to 3rd in the NCAA. The growth of guard Breland Snipes, along with the constant scoring of forward Joshae Whitfield, rounded out the team for a 9-win season, but we will see a lot of returners for the Owls in the winter. Now we maneuver over to the Jacksonville Dolphins. JU grabbed the 4 seed in East play this year, but had a more than solid record, earning a 16-13 overall mark. The horror stories continued for away teams going into Swisher Gymnasium as the Dolphins scored 11 wins and only 4 losses. The Dolphins played fast thanks in part to the guard Taylor Hawks, who had a year to remember. Hawks led the team in scoring with 11.2 points per game, as well as being the primary playmaker, especially in the open court. Along with the offensive accolades, she was just as tenacious on the other side of the ball, swiping a team-high 51 steals. Hawks wasn't the only player to find comfort in buckling down on defense, as the Dolphins held opponents to close to only 38% shooting, good for 4th in the ASUN. JU displayed young talent this year, with Jalissa Dunlap getting ASUN All-Freshman Team honors after knocking down 25 threes and averaging 6.1 points per game. The Dolphins pushed through the first round of the postseason with a gritty 10-point victory over Central Arkansas. Let's keep it here in the East, but also head south to Florida to take a look at the Stetson Hatters. Stetson not only leaves the year with postseason success, but much to look forward to in the next season. But for this year, it was another superb season from Yaz Waziruddin, as she landed a second-team All-Conference nod, starting on the defensive end. As one of the best perimeter defenders in the ASUN, she won a share of the steals per game title with 2.1 per game while putting up 12.1 points per game. But of course, it wasn't a one-woman show, with Tatiana Stroin and Alyssa Hargrove showing out this year. Stroin was named the league's newcomer of the year after averaging 11.1 points per game. Another standout this year for Stetson was the play of Alyssa Hargrove at the point position, as she helped run the offense on the way to an ASUN All-Conference freshman team slot. She helped assist the Hatters to a 20-win season and a postseason run to the ASUN semifinals for the first time since 2017. This season highlighted the 8th year in head coach Lynn Bria's Stetson career with a 20-win-plus season. Along with that, Stetson became the first team in ASUN history to win 30 postseason games with their win over UNA in the quarterfinals. Next up, the Liberty Flames. The Flames rolled through ASUN regular season competition, sporting a 14-2 ASUN record and 28-5 overall. Like we have seen before, the Flames played well at home, throwing up a 16-2 record inside Liberty Arena. But what made this Liberty team special this year was the rebounding average, over 42 per game, with help from the likes of Maya Berkman and Bridget Rettstadt. Berkman became an unstoppable force in the paint, shooting an insane 66.4% from the field while sporting the third spot in that category across the nation. Rettstadt also chipped in with 7 boards a game while scoring 11.4 points per game, earning ASUN first team all honors along with Berkman. This electric duo also held opposing teams off of the scoring tally while holding teams to just 52 points per game on 34% shooting, both being league best. The defense prevailed throughout the year, even holding non-conference opponent Virginia Tech to 40 points earlier in the season. After a close loss in the semifinals, they then advanced to the WNIT, where they kept their season going with a win over Campbell, holding them to just 44 points. Now on to the Queens of the West this year, the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. It was history this year for JSU, making it to the ASUN Championship Final as well as the WNIT for continued postseason play. The Gamecocks finished with a 24-8 overall record and 13-3 in the ASUN, winning the West Division after earning a 15-1 home record. The lone defeat in Pete Matthews Coliseum came at the hands of FGCU, which is the same team that they faced in the ASUN Championship game. Not to get too ahead of myself, but that means that JSU had quite the tourney run, beating Jacksonville and Liberty, 2 tough defensive teams. The JU win signified the first win since the 2017-18 season in the postseason. Guard Amari Martin lit up the scoreboards this year, averaging double-digit scoring figures with help from Kiana Johnson and Kennedy Gavin, who both came in with 9.6 points per game. The amazing season did not come to an end after the ASUN Championship, however, as they played Tulane in the previously mentioned WNIT. But the NCAA tournament bid went to the undisputed queens of the ASUN, the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles. Simply put, an astonishing year for the Eagles. It was the 9th championship crown for FGCU after defeating Jacksonville State in the ASUN Championship Final and going to Selection Sunday, a top 20 NCAA ranked team. There is no debate. Kirsten Bell was again the best player in the ASUN and a top player across the nation, scoring almost 23 points per game this year. The repeat ASUN Player of the Year helped her team to a 30-3 overall record and a postseason win in the national tournament. ASUN Coach of the Year Carl Smesko led the Eagles to victory over Georgia Tech after receiving the 12th seed with a quote upset of the 5th seeded Hokies. Everything for FGCU operated off of the 3-ball, shooting just shy of 1,200 on the year and sinking them at a 33% rate. We've already talked about Kirsten Bell, but the other stars on this team also shined bright. Tashara Morehouse and Kendall Spray both lit up the scoreboards, combining for 26 points on average per game. Spray had yet another historic season shooting from beyond the arc, knocking them down at a 45.6% clip. Her shot was on full display at Xavier University of Louisiana as Spray won the Rocket Mortgage Challenge 3-point shooting competition ahead of the Final Four. This star-studded team represented the ASUN well and showed the nation exactly what FGCU women's basketball is all about.
And that's a wrap for the 2021-2022 men's and women's basketball season. Now it's time to relax and unwind until next winter, where these teams will battle for the ASUN title yet again. But until then, I'm Jordan Griffith with the ASUN Conference. Thanks for watching.